Welcome to the OC, bitches. Here we are. I try different ones every time. So just so
you do different voices every week?
Yeah. She does.
Yeah.
She does. She's trying a few out. Yeah. Waiting to see what sticks.
So everyone, we have a very, very special episode. We are not talking about an in particular episode, but today we are deep diving into how it all began with our special guest, Joseph McGinty Nichol, otherwise known as McG. McG is an award-winning, multi-talented director, producer, and writer of television, film, and music videos. A director known for his mixed genre style, he's responsible for bringing you all some of the most iconic videos, stories, and images on screen, including Charlie's Angels, We Are Marshall, I love that movie, Chuck, Terminator Salvation, The Babysitter, Supernatural, Nikita, Turner and Hooch, the upcoming Love Hard and Uglies, and of course, the OC, only to name a few. He is a pop culture jukebox with legs. Rachel, we have to see if we can keep up. Welcome, McG. Woo!
Oh, thank you for having me here. I'm blushing via the Matrix. So, hi guys. What's going on? I'm very, very happy to see the two of you. Congratulations. And wow, you look great and I'm delighted to be here. What's happening?
Thanks. So do you, by the way. I mean, I think was the last time I saw you, we did that Funny or Die video together. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. I hope that wasn't the last time we saw each other, but it may have been, and that was a long time ago. But I'm very, very happy to see you again. And that was funny. I love that. I saw that the other day, and it made me giggle.
Yeah, that had some legs
You're a
on
killer.
It was that was really funny.
You're a killer, and Adam Scott's a killer.
I know. Adam Scott was in it as well, and we had a lot of fun. It's a pretty funny little thing we did.
The last time I saw you two was at that OC musical in the same room.
Oh, well, then that was the last
2015.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that. At the Montalban Theater. That was so cool. They did that, and Autumn did it, right?
Autumn did it.
Did Autumn do it?
Yes, she played Julie Cooper.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Who I suspect you're familiar with.
Yeah, it was that was really fun when we went. I think I had just had Briar, my daughter, so my brain is a little. But yes, that was awesome.
So you have two little girls. What are their names?
The older one is Harper. The younger one is Grace. My wife's name is Alex. I met her making a movie in France. She's a production manager, and she's super cool.
Oh, that's exciting. What film are you working on right now?
I'm doing a YA book series called Uglies, which is sort of Hunger Games, Divergent, Maze Runner adjacent. And it's with Joey King, who's a very talented young actor. She
played my daughter, or I got to play her mother on an episode of Ghost Whisperer. I'm the mother of everybody. She was 10 at the time. And it was like, wow, ooh, that little girl is going to be a star. She was way more proficient than any of the adults on set, for sure.
Yeah, she's got a special mind. There's no doubt about it. She's one and done. She's a very, very talented person.
Absolutely.
That is really cool.
Yeah. So having fun at that, doing we probably make 3 or 4 movies a year, usually for Netflix, and then we probably do 2 or 3 television shows a year at my company, which I started back with you guys in the OC days when it was Warner Brothers and Peter Roth and everybody that we met over at Fox. And I remember those glorious days. Wonderland Sound and Vision, same company, same place there on Sunset by where Tower Records used to be, and still doing it.
I love that.
I just talked to Stephanie Savage like an hour ago.
No way.
And we never see each other. But I just talked to her.
Can I ask you a question? Have you ever, some people had to take quarantine and be serious about it, but I have a feeling you worked through quarantine. Did you? Were you always in development? Or you always have something going on? Have you ever taken a break in your life?
Not so much. I mean, I'm happy working. I just sort of enjoy it. So we were kind of lucky during the quarantine. We were hopscotching around. We did a movie down in New Orleans when the numbers were attractive and it was good to be in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. And then we did a TV show up in Vancouver and also another movie in Vancouver all last year. So we were lucky that we shot 3 big things in 1 year of pandemic. And then it would close down and, knock on wood, we didn't have any negative tests. And now down here in Georgia right now, it's really rough. And, every time we get tested, because you guys know how it is, you get tested 2 and 3 times a week. You're just like, when is my number up? It's roulette every time. It's crazy.
Oh, it is. But that's cool that you have persisted and you're able to make these really amazing things that you're doing. And
well, what's more cool is that a pandemic gave birth to this show. So congratulations to you two ladies.
Oh,
It did.
Well, thank you. It did. It did birth us. Brought us right through that birth canal. So, obviously we're talking about the OC and
Can I talk about birth canals?
Yeah, let's do that because that's actually way more interesting.
See, I first of all, I think it's ridiculous when men say we're pregnant. It's offensive. And but an interesting factoid: my wife gave birth through the traditional birth canal without any medication.
God,
and I
bless
remember
her.
standing by twice and just really marveling at that kind of focus. And
Dude,
yeah, I would imagine the two of you can relate to that far more than I can. But I mean, I marvel at that. That was one of the most wow moments of my life to see somebody just focus and get it done, as they say.
I planned to do it because my mom in the 60s and 70s did 2 unmedicated births. So I thought, she did it, I can do it. And then all of a sudden it happened. I'm like, nope, give me the epidural. That's what I need. I need the pain medication because I'm like, whoa, how did she do that? No.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So, I mean, I had a kidney stone once. So, that's as close as I'm going to get. And I'm sure it's nothing.
Oh, no, I've had both. I have had given birth and had a kidney stone. So I can assure you, kidney stone is close, but nothing compares.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it's close. Yeah. I remember a kidney stone hurting so bad, only the back of my head and my heels were touching the floor. The rest was like arch because it was so bad.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. But yes, giving birth, I had the same thing. I was like, whatever happens, I'm not going to have a plan. But as soon as it hit, 3 hours in, I was like, give me that epidural. And it's God's gift to this world, I have to say.
The epidural.
But God bless your wife and your mother, Melinda, for doing it naturally. Because holy fuck, that is intense.
That's intense.
I want to tell our bitches listening that more than anybody else.
You call your fans your bitches?
I just did it for the first time.
She just did. First time.
So the fans of this podcast are bitches
as well.
Oh, okay.
I'm going.
I mean, what did Carmack have to say about the fact that he got to deliver that line?
He says it follows him everywhere, and he thinks that's what he's going to be told at the pearly gates. Welcome to
heaven, bitches.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Or, wow. I mean, it was funny because I remember talking to Josh and just being like, dude, I don't know if that's going to work, man. I hope you can stick the landing on that line because I don't know. And he was like, I don't know either. And then it defined everything. It was just one of those moments.
So bitches, more than anybody else connected to this show, McG was born in Michigan, but he moved to Newport Beach when he was 3. So he literally lived the OC and Newport Beach, and that was his stomping ground. And tell us about those years. I mean, my first real question was, where did you go to high school? And what were you like in high school? And just tell us about growing up in Newport from your point of view.
Well, it's funny because for me, this is the genesis of why and how I connected most deeply with Josh regarding, the Seth character, Adam's character, that point of view and that way in is that I was very slight as a child. I mean, I had an orange afro, neck gear, braces. I wore dolphins and had shoe skates. It was a fucking disaster. I graduated high school a virgin. I was very slight. All the guys that I was friends with or hung around with were like these water polo Adonis, guys that would go on, they were lifeguards, they were surfers, they would be on the Olympic water polo team. And Josh would be like, I'm that guy from, Providence, Rhode Island. And I went to SC and I know all those guys now.
Right.
And we would kind of giggle about that, about being on the outside looking in. But I was always, older brother, older sister, very much involved in music and film, never a very good surfer. My brother was a good surfer, that his best friend started Volcom in my parents' garage effectively. And
wow.
Yeah, so I was very connected to it, but I was always on the periphery. And I went to Corona Del Mar High School, which was sort of the genesis of the Harbor School on the show.
Okay.
And yeah, it was an interesting time. It was what I reflect most on is just sort of the feeling of nothing cool could ever come from here. And I think that's when you're most likely to catch lightning in a bottle is when, whether it's out of work broke kids in the 1970s in England or, disillusioned kids in Seattle, Washington during the time of grunge. We were down in Orange County, which was sort of known for, planned communities, divorce culture, nothing cool. Nothing cool. And strangely, out of that time was born, Gwen Stefani's from there. I mean, Snoop's from Long Beach, but, basically Orange County, the guys in Sublime, Stone Temple Pilots. There was essentially one black kid in Irvine. It was Zach De La Rocha, who went on to be the singer of Rage Against the Machine. You never would have thought that out of that, Gwen Stefani, the whole thing, something would grow. Plus, then you have like the board culture of surfboard, skateboard, snowboard, all of that. So there was like this music, and there was kind of this culture, and there was this fashion sense. And I think the OC embodied that and delivered it to the world, via you guys. And I think that was just part of the stickiness of the whole thing, that Josh got that right, and he just bottled it and delivered it to everybody.
Everyone needs an escape, but those can be hard to come by right now. Enter Dipsea. Let yourself get lost in a world where good things happen and where your pleasure is the only priority.
Dipsea is an audio app full of short, sexy stories designed to turn you on.
Each Dipsea audio story features characters that feel like real people and immersive scenarios, so you feel like you're right there.
Listen to stories about hooking up with your hometown crush you never made a move on, or that coworker you always had a little thing for, or maybe a story that puts you in bed with someone who's telling you exactly what they'd like to do to you.
If you need to wind down, Dipsea also has wellness sessions, sensual bedtime stories, and soundscapes to help you relax before you drift off. Now that sounds great to me. Getting to sleep is hard for me sometimes after a stressful day, or I have a racing mind. So I will try anything that helps me relax.
I kind of feel like this is the romance novel of apps. And sometimes when you need a little escape, also a relaxing one at that, I feel like this is the move. For listeners of the show, Dipsea is offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/OC.
That's 30 days of full access for free when you go to dipseastories.com/OC. dipseastories.com/OC.
Rewatching the OC for hours on end can work up an appetite. Well, Grubhub's got you covered.
We trust Grubhub to get our food delivered fast and tasting fresh, just as the restaurant intended it to be.
Grubhub loves restaurants, so they make damn sure they work hard to represent them and uphold their reputation.
And you know what I did recently? I actually ordered food for my daughter CG from Grubhub in Chicago. I've done it a few times when she was sick and just a cold, thankfully. She wanted her favorite Thai soup. And then once I sent her donuts for her birthday, it's really a great idea for your, college student away from home.
Yeah, I think anybody away from home. I do the same for my mom, who's 15 minutes away. But sometimes, she's tired and I surprise her with something, and Grubhub saves the day. It's actually a really nice thing to do for others.
Today, Grubhub's doing a little extra to serve Panera. Get a free delivery perk on your first order from Panera of $15 or more.
Order through the Grubhub app or online. Grubhub, we serve restaurants.
Well, my mother used to call it, I grew up in Dana Point, but she used to call it a cultural wasteland, which is pretty strong words because she thought she was the only Democrat in the whole area. But that's exactly what I kind of thought about it when I was growing up as well. But you were kind of, were you say you weren't popular, but were you the kind of kid that could just bounce around to every kind of clique and be friends with everyone?
That's what it was. It wasn't that I wasn't popular. I was fine. You know what I mean? Because I was everybody's sort of like unthreatening sidekick. So I could kind of hang with the surfers and then hang with like the goth theater kids, but then hang with the socias and hang with the jocks. Mm-hmm. And I was unthreatening and I was an easy hang. So there was sort of like a mascot component that allowed me access. And also, my best friend growing up was this guy, Mark McGrath, who, that's how I got started in the music business. Because I'm like, dude, your voice is not that great, but you're spectacularly handsome. And he certainly was, particularly at that time. But, he had bad skin and he was kind of down on himself, he was kind of like my Rankin Roger. He was kind of like my sidekick, which was ironic because all the girls that looked like you guys started to identify his hotness early on, like with the good cheekbones and the good jaw, and would identify that, and they would use me as a conduit to get to him. And so I've been used and abused my whole life is basically where I'm going with this. And thank you for this emotional therapy session.
Did you create a band? Did you create the band with him? And didn't you sing it first?
Yeah, but I mean, that it's funny because it's kind of a long story, but the band thing is, I created that, but where do I begin? Right when I was around 15, I started having a really bad anxiety disorder that was very emasculating and very secretive and very, limiting. I became really agoraphobic. So being in the band was prohibitive because the band would get gigs where it would be beyond where I could go without, really, really freaking out. But Mark could go. So I became more of like this managerial guy that helped push that forward. And I suffered from that problem all throughout, the final 2 years of high school, all throughout college. I was supposed to go to USC. I went to USC for one day, couldn't really handle it, ended up going to UCI, which was back closer to Newport Beach. Got through, I did all those videos and all that stuff. I made all those records and all those commercials and all those videos just in the sort of LA basin, and even made those first 2 Charlie's Angels movies. And Melinda, you would know, did Fastlane also here in LA. And we all know now hardly anything ever shoots in California anymore.
Right.
And then finally I'm on Superman. So I'm going to make the Superman movie and I'm getting ready to go. And they're like, we're going to Australia. And I literally remember telling the bosses at Warner Brothers at that time, hey, I can't go to Australia. I'm afraid of flying. I can't do it. And it didn't even register. They were like, you're McG, you'll be fine. You're the boisterous, happy guy. You're the bouncing off the walls guy. You'll be fine. Anyway, the plane's on the tarmac, the Warner's private jet meant to take me to Australia. And, I can't get on. I get fired off of Superman, rightfully so. They got to make the movie down in Australia. They put Bryan Singer on the movie. But it was right at the time that the OC was breaking. And dare I say, very nearly on the day that I got fired off of Superman, the OC is on the cover of Entertainment Weekly. Wow. And there was this incredible, at a very, very dark time in my life, which led me to the doorstep of 2 women at UCLA that help people with a problem like mine. And, I've been doing well for, 15 or 20 years now, flying all over the world. So I'm very thankful. But at that time, it was a very, very welcome ray of sunshine in just a really difficult, sad, terribly depressing, scary, shitty time in my life.
I love that story. I'm so glad that you're doing well.
My pain entertains you.
Well, no, I just loved it because life does throw you challenges, and it's all to know that you're better now and that you can actually look at the positive and it's how we pick ourselves up from things. I've suffered from anxiety later in life, and I've spent the past few years figuring out that situation and really changing my life in a lot of ways, which is attitude and different things in my life. And today it's gone. Well, it's not gone. It can come back, but I know how to deal with it,
Yeah.
So
yeah, good for you. That's great. It's just, this was at a time when it wasn't chic, to talk about mental health, and right. It was just, it was rough. And, but yeah, it was very secretive. I never talked about it. It's sad if you get invited to Buckingham Palace to show the royal family Charlie's Angels, and all the girls want to go, and you're supposed to go and sort of, kind of be the ringleader of the whole thing because you're the director of the picture. It's like, oh, I'm sick, and everybody kind of rolls their eyes like, what the hell's wrong with McG? And just it was just a really touch and go tough time. So I had to go to work on it and worked hard on it and, got better. But I never say I'm over it, Melinda. It's kind of like what you just said. It's like if you weighed 600 pounds and you worked hard to get down to your fighting weight of 125 or 225, whatever it might be, that you have to do what is necessary to stay healthy. If you stop doing what is necessary, you're probably going to go back to being unhealthy, and that's not good. So I try to stay on it and be cognizant of my brain is vibrating on that frequency. And maybe that's, I didn't go to film school. I didn't go to record engineering school. And maybe that's what helps me hear music a certain way and tell stories a certain way and see things a certain way and dream a certain way. So there could be sort of like a secondary gain buried underneath what's painful on the surface. So all you bitches out there, keep on chopping.
Showing up. You got to show up. And what goes on in my head can become reality. And I have to, negative thoughts, fear, all of those things can be very, very powerful. And I've learned that that's what I have to calm down. And there's just different things. I very much agree with you. And a lot of it came from having to travel or being a mother and not being around my daughter. And Rachel and I have talked about this, having to be on set in a different country. Those things when you're a mother, can be very, very stressful, and it's going to come out somehow. So, yeah. So can you fly now? You can fly.
Yeah. I mean, the greatest achievement for me was, I remember leaving LAX, heading east and returning from the West. I went around the world, and it just felt like, wow. I mean, that felt as good as anything I'd done in my career or anything else, because it was such a personal, important mountain to climb. So I was proud of that. And yeah, I mean, now I try to make a point of not ever really going a week or two without getting on a plane, which is a lot and kind of a pain, but I want to stay sharp.
Yeah. I just think there's like tools that you learn how to deal with it all. And I myself have had help with it, and I think therapy is a great place for that. And there's all the stories we tell us in our head, and you have to like tell yourself a different story essentially. And it's all about your mind and being able to control it. So I think it's very impressive that you are where you are today, McG, and overcoming all that. And I never knew that. So
I didn't know you didn't know that.
No.
Yeah, but because look at the OC was photographed, Manhattan Beach, the whole thing. Didn't have to go out of town too much. We did a couple of opening shots flying around Newport. But yeah, so like I was able to cloak it throughout that whole thing. And now that I've sufficiently bummed out the room, maybe
on that note.
Yeah. Should we talk about some happy giggles that we had along the way?
I mean, let's talk, we're all about we're really in like the birth of everything. I feel like this episode. So the birth of the OC, happened with you and Josh Schwartz and Stephanie Savage and the whole thing. So we could talk about that, coming through the birth canal and ending up with the OC. Cause I think.
Yeah. I mean, I remember one of the early times, meeting with Josh. Stephanie was so high on this kid, Josh. She was so high on this kid's voice. Well, first of all, let me tell you about how I met Stephanie.
Yeah.
I mean, Stephanie, as we all know, is amazing. And when I met Stephanie, she was working for Drew Barrymore at Flower Films. And I'm I'm in my 20s. I'm about to direct my first movie. Drew Barrymore is at the height of her power. Cameron Diaz, height of her power, the whole thing. And they have this little pipsqueak running around their office, like cleaning coffee cups, that looks like a mix between, who are the two ladies in Scooby-Doo? Velma and Daphne. She's kind of like
Velma and Daphne.
She's a Velma Daphne fusion. And she's running around doing her thing. And, she's so literate and she's so funny and she's listening to the same punk rock records that I'm listening to. And we're kind of bonding. And Drew, who owned and ran the company, and her partner, Nancy Javonen, who's a terribly intelligent and powerful producer, who ran the company, like, McG, you need Stephanie just to help you organize what's going on. I go, great. And Stephanie and I would just work day and night throughout Charlie's Angels, trying to get it into focus and get it into shooting shape. It was a very difficult production always. And some of the, best stuff is. But I just saw how great she was. And I asked for her hand in, a professional relationship from Drew and from Nancy. And they were gracious enough, like, yeah, she's clearly going places. I don't know if she ever got her PhD, but she damn near did, from like the University of Iowa writing program, terribly prestigious. So I go, great, we're going to start this company. It's going to be called Wonderland Sound and Vision. Sound and Vision because I like the David Bowie song and because I'm equally into music and film. And it was me and Stephanie. And we were at, Sunset Boulevard right next to Tower Records. We're still there. And cut to the second Charlie's Angels movie where Stephanie's my full-blown partner and we're doing our thing. And she's like, you got to meet this kid, Josh Schwartz. He's got such a great voice. He's so smart. You got to read his stuff. And I'm like, dude, I am neck deep in the second Charlie. I got Demi Moore in a bikini and a fur coat over there. I'm trying to keep all this stuff moving. And then there's this kid that comes up to Griffith Park where we're doing a terribly complicated scene, and it's Josh. And we talked about the OC for a few minutes, and we talked about, Providence, Rhode Island, and USC. And the big topic, hey, Josh, it's not the OC. Melinda knows what the hell I'm talking about. Rachel, you probably know what the hell I'm talking about with your San Diego roots. And I'm like, it's just OC, man. It's just OC. He's like, no, it's got to be the OC. And truly with equal measure. Actually, this far supersedes even Welcome to the OC bitches. He made it the OC. You will seriously, I still have a house in Newport. My parents are there. I go there whenever I can on the weekends. And you will see things that say like, I grew up in Newport Beach before it was the OC.
Right.
Like that absolutely shifted the identity, the name of a place. That's how much power you guys have in the way that you act, and you explode off that television.
So he was calling it the before.
And I'm like, there's no the, dude. What are you talking about?
So he maintains that kids at USC were calling it the OC, like the hood. We're from the OC. And yeah, you and I had never heard that. But then subsequently, after that, you'd hear like newscasters telling in the OC, the weather is 57 degrees today, and I was like, what?
And furthermore, the logo from the show became the logo for the county. I don't know how, Gail Berman allowed that, or, the Murdoch family or Jimmy Warner Brothers. I mean, I don't know what happened there.
Do you remember?
But,
do you remember they were actually going to change John Wayne Airport to the OC Airport at one point? There was a campaign.
Now that you mention it, I do remember that being, that's so look, again, that's a tribute to the impact that I credit Melinda Clark and Rachel Bilson.
Right. Are you having a good summer? I'm having a good summer. Oh no, that's Rachel. Sorry. I've been actually really enjoying going to the beach a few times a week. And this summer has actually been the best summer for my shaving because I love my new Billy razor.
Billy is the best razor out there for those days when you want an extra smooth shave, no pink tacks, no visit to the drugstore, no breaking the bank. I recently went on a trip to Hawaii, and let me tell you, keeping up that bikini line, the legs, everything, it can be a real job. But thankfully, Billy came to my rescue. It gives me the smoothest shave, no trip to the wax place when I'm on vacation.
You can go to mybilly.com to get their starter kit for just $9. It's so affordable and includes their award-winning razor, 2 refill blades, and a cult favorite magnetic holder.
They're an Allure Best of Beauty winner and on Nylon's beauty hit list for a reason. And to express a little love for our show, go to mybilly.com/OC. It's a small way you can support us while getting the best razor you will ever own.
It's just $9 to get your starter kit plus free shipping always. Go to mybilly.com/OC, spelled my, BILLIE.com/OC.
Investing can be complicated, but whether you're a beginner or you've been investing for years, Wealthfront makes it easy. They have the right tools for every portfolio.
Wealthfront can create a portfolio of globally diversified, low-cost index funds, personalized just for you in minutes. No manual trades, no picking stocks, no watching the stock market every day. They automatically handle all the investing based on preferences you control.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so easy. It's automated, so people like me who know nothing about investing, I can still get in the game. I literally had no idea where to start.
I think it's really important to invest, and I recommend this to those who want to but don't know where to start. And I've been talking to my daughter about investing, and you are never too young to start. This is a great way to do it. I just wish I'd known more about it when I was 21.
Wealthfront is trusted with over $20 billion of assets, and you can get your first $5,000 managed for free by going to wealthfront.com/OC. All you need is $500 to get started. Grow your wealth the easy way and let Wealthfront do the work for you.
To get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/OC. That's WEALTHFRONT.com/OC to start growing your savings.
Go to wealthfront.com/OC and get started today.
Well, listen, you got to tell the story of the summer character, which I'd like to hear your version of it, Rachel, but I don't recall when we locked the script or not, if this is the truth, but essentially Summer's line in the pilot was, "Ew."
I mean, essentially, yes.
Okay. And you talk about making chicken salad out of chicken shit. You just blew up the whole world and lit it on fire and just said, I am too, lit from within to be extinguished. And you just went on to be you badass motherfucker.
Well, thanks. Jeez. Yeah, I think that's essentially, ew, and having to pee really is what did it. And Josh was like, yep, we're going to keep you around because you make peeing funny. So
yeah. So yeah, there, somewhere in there is the truth. But really, the headline is Rachel Bilson is magic in a bottle. And you really made it happen. And the whole world responded and got behind you and got excited.
Man, thanks for saying that.
So much fun watching this show is watching my fellow co-stars and the choices they made. And Rachel, you have some of the best. I mean, it's a perfect example of a writer starting to write for characters like Julie and Summer. And you can see the progression of how Josh started writing because he loved what you were doing and gave you so many great things.
Oh, you too, and your little one-liners and things
and your
as
froyo
well.
And whatever else.
Exactly. Froyo turned into like...
You guys were the conduits of Josh's and Stephanie, because Stephanie became very, I mean, look, it's Josh's show. We all know, that, but Stephanie was, they do their sort of emo, indie rock, computer back-to-back, stay up all night, candlelit thing that they would do. And Stephanie really understood the voicing, but Josh really brought like the meta television to it all, which, because he was such a, kind of Larry Sanders, he's such quality, highbrow humor synthesized with lowbrow, which, results in its own elegance. And it's funny because people would always talk about like, hey, McG, what's your thing? And, some people like what I do and some people don't like what I do. But my goal is to synthesize highbrow and lowbrow. And I think Quentin Tarantino does it better than anybody. And I think Josh Schwartz does it effectively better than anybody. And I think you guys did it with like, The OC was a teen soap opera. Sure. But it's also a show that would talk about Thomas Pynchon and magical realism. And for those who cared to look a little bit more deeply, it was vibrating on that frequency as well. And that's why I think a lot of people would raise an eyebrow and go, holy shit. I mean, did I just hear what I thought I heard? Is this really this, groovy new band, Death Cab for Cutie, that's showing up on Fox and doing like, it had all these clues for those who wish to pay attention that honored the intelligent. And that's really a tribute to Josh and Stephanie.
And that goes to what we're trying to explore with this podcast, not only just the nostalgia of it, but why it had such a cultural impact. And Josh being 27 at the time, he wasn't set in any formulaic Aaron Spelling kind of show. He was doing what he liked. And that's what we were learning. And Stephanie, what they liked and what they thought was cool. And ultimately, they were creating pop culture and not necessarily reflecting it and just doing things that shows hadn't really done, that Trojan horse, so to speak, bringing and making sure that the adult storylines had interesting things that the parents, I mean, Sandy and Kirsten are one of the best couples ever. And Peter had some really great things. We all wanted him as a dad. There's so many things that just felt new and fresh on an old formula.
I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the signature things, and I think one of the things that helped it break out, especially as I look at you, looking the same as the day we met on Fastlane. By the way, I'll have you know that Melinda Clark and I have worked together 3 times. Fastlane?
Well, I didn't
the
work.
OC, the
Nikita.
And Nikita. That's a lot.
Well,
that's a lot.
I would love to to our listeners.
But wait, I got to pay my compliment.
Oh, thanks. Sorry.
You guys were the first ones. Josh sexualized the parents of a teen soap. They weren't put out to pasture as non-sexual old fogies. The OC was like, with Tate and with Peter and with, Kelly, you guys brought this like, no, we're still vibrant. We still want to do it, which was also an accurate reflection of the culture at that moment in Orange County. Like it was a frisky moment. And, I just think that was one of the defining characteristics of the OC in its time, because that wasn't happening on 90210. That wasn't happening on the shows that preceded the OC. I think Josh deserves a lot of credit for treating the adult characters on a youth-oriented show as fully rounded characters.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you go to the beach in Laguna Beach, you can't tell the mothers between the daughters. They look the same. They're constantly trying to, Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys
yoga.
So was Fastlane where you first met each other?
I think so, wasn't it?
So, okay, I remember this vividly. My first audition for this show called Fastlane, it was in some big room. I don't know if we were at the Warner Ranch or Universal somewhere. And I walk in and I meet this full of energy. Hey, really great to meet you. Let's do this. And I do the scene. Great, let's do it again. We're just having fun here. Listeners, when we go in for auditions, I guess the best word I can come up with, oftentimes it's, cold, or especially when you're testing. So from that, I got to test for the show. And I remember you had Peter Facinelli. I don't know. So when you test for a show, you have to audition for the studio, which is Peter Roth and Warner Brothers. And if you pass that, you go on to Fox and the network. So there's this room full of executives with McG and 15 people. And I remember going in, and I think I was the first girl to go in. And I've tested a lot, and I've never had this experience where it was, hey, McG stands up. Usually it's a very cold, quiet room. You go and you do your thing, you walk out, and he says, hey, everybody, this is Melinda Clark, and this is Peter Facinelli. And so here's the scene. This just happened, and this is going to happen, and scene, go, or an action. And we do the scene, and I look over and I see Peter Roth and the executives, and they have this nice little smile on their face, because I don't think normally, or at least I never experienced somebody with so much enthusiasm. And it was so refreshing. Like, you made the process fun. And I didn't end up, you gave it to Tiffany Amber Thiessen, I believe. It was
that would be Peter Roth gave it to Tiffany Amber Thiessen.
But
who we love. Oh, by the way, Peter Roth can't get enough credit for the OC. It's impossible to overstate his role.
Right.
And Susan Rovner. And for that matter, Gail Berman at Fox. Gail Berman really pushed this thing over the top.
Yeah, you had me come in again, and then I learned from Josh. I think when I auditioned for the OC, I didn't remember exactly that you guys were so involved. I don't know exactly, but for some reason I thought it was Patrick Rush. Anyway, I owe that experience to being on the OC because you guys knew me. So I'm curious also now about the casting. Do you remember the casting of the rest of the cast? Do you remember, what your experience was?
You know how, I would imagine the two of you can just reflect on some life moments, and it's just kind of cool where every once in a while you're like, wow, that's a moment. I remember this moment. I remember sitting at Fox, and as Melinda just stated, you kind of go in and you have, dare I say, two candidates for any given role. Sometimes three, very rarely one, but just call it two. And I remember looking at the seats as I was about to enter that ice cold, freaky experience. I don't know how anything positive ever happens in those casting rooms. Poorly lit, bad audio, weird curtain in the back. It's just bummer. And in the two chairs auditioning for the female lead of the OC, Misha Barton, Olivia Wilde.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just seeing that and going, wow, these two ladies have so much, and there's so much horsepower coming off the two of them. And it's so exciting. How could we ever choose? And that's sort of one memory I have of, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Shailene Woodley on the show? Didn't her horse have alopecia?
Yeah, she was my daughter. Yeah.
That's a Stephanie joke, What's the horse's name again? I forget the horse's name again. China had alopecia. And that was a Stephanie joke. And I think, I'm just saying a lot of people kind of did their thing in that respect. It was a very, very enjoyable and thorough experience. And a lot of credit to the people at Warner Brothers and the people at Fox. And it's so funny because Josh, Stephanie, McG, to some degree, Patrick Rush, the writers, what have you, but particularly me, Josh, and Stephanie, we really would hear let's talk about Melinda Clark after she left the room. It's gnarly. It's everything that as an actor, you'd be like, holy shit, what was that like? What are they saying? That room was icy. That room was, I think I crushed it. I think I fucked it up. Whatever it might be, it is gloves off, raw dog. You know what I mean?
I've heard
about
that.
The pros. Yeah, and in a good way, because the stakes are high. If the shows fail, these people get fired, regimes change. Everybody's got to do their thing. But it's terribly exciting for that. And I just can say in fairness that Peter Roth, who ran Warner Brothers, who has since retired, is probably the most important executive in the history of television. And Gail Berman, who was running Fox. Those were our two big bosses. Peter was our Warner's boss. Gail was running Fox. And they were so behind you guys from the jump. And it felt so good to have that much enthusiasm. And I'm telling you, it reverberated into the screen. It just felt supported. They were behind Josh. They didn't fuck with him at all. They didn't get in his way. Nobody tripped out on how young he was. We all knew that he was a freaky talent, and we just went all in on it. So like, it was the support for the actors. It was the support for everything that I think gave a risky and experimental show at the time a chance to find its sea legs.
Yeah. And so did you meet Misha for the first time on Fastlane as well? Is that?
I don't recall. I'm having a senior moment. I don't recall the first, Rachel, I don't recall the first time we met.
Yeah. Well, I do remember my audition being at your offices off Sunset.
Mine was
sense.
Yeah, I auditioned at Wonderland too. But Misha did an episode or 1 or 2 of Fastlane.
Did she? Yeah. I thought that's...
So I may have, but I mean, I only directed the pilot of that, and I was sort of, doing the movies and the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, even that Charlie's thing, I'm realizing now that's the reason why I didn't do the pilot. Thank God I didn't do the pilot. Doug got it. He did it better than I would have done it. And, none of us would change a thing. I remember going out to the set the first day and talking to Ben, and we shot largely in chronological order. And, he was just milling around, and he was kind of like going over the scene in his head, and he had to sort of like get in a fight with his family in his, Chino house. And, it was just like one of those frozen in time snapshot memories that are just sort of priceless.
So you did not get to do the pilot because you were working on Charlie's Angels. Do you remember how or why Doug was chosen for that role?
100%. It was the worst scene of all time. I wish I could just call Gail right now. Ready for Raw Dog? Raw Dog goes to this guy too, to say the least. Literally, she just ripped me in half because I knew there was going to be a scheduling conflict, and I had to play it like, holy shit, when are we going to, come clean with, this is like Ari Emanuel level stuff at Endeavor to manage the expectation of Fox and Warner's with this show that's going and all things are clicking. And to make a long story short, when we finally went, look, it's just not going to line up scheduling wise, Gail goes, motherfucker, you better get a director of your caliber or better. And, just really laid it down. And Gail and I love each other, and we loved each other then. Yeah. But she just like, I'm not moving backwards on this show. And we, McG, you're part of the package, and we're pissed that you're not going to do it. And you better get somebody better than you. And we did. We got Doug Liman, and the rest is history. But it was very fortunate that Doug responded to it. And, Doug and I are friends, but we're 180 degrees removed from each other in our worldview and our approach to our work and just about everything. And he's done great stuff. But, I just think that might have been the luckiest thing that ever happened to us. I might have fucked it up is basically what I'm saying.
Well, and was it very close to the pilot? Like you pulled out a few weeks? Was it?
I wasn't a bad guy. I was just, we were trying. I phrased that. We were trying to make it work out.
Right.
But you've got a very, very powerful machine in Sony going, this is what we need to do with Charlie's Angels. Then you got a very powerful machine in Warner Brothers and Fox. Those are three pretty nifty media companies all going, look, we're not playing second fiddle to anybody. This is our priority. Get your shit together.
Right.
But it landed on his feet, and it was totally cool. But if it wouldn't have been someone of the caliber of Doug, it would have been a bad scene. And thank God it was Doug.
Well, how did Doug come about? Was that your idea?
I don't really recall. He may have been represented and it was just called Endeavor at the time. It was before WME. He may have, but it was just one of those, there are a few people. And back then it wasn't common at all. There was a very, very big divide between directors that were making films and directors that were directing pilots. They usually weren't birds of a feather. And this was kind of early days for that. And that was one of the stipulations as laid down by Gail. And, so he was on a very, very short list, and we were lucky that he responded, and he did it.
Yeah.
So how'd you like working with him?
I love Doug. I worked with Doug on a movie as well, and it's very unique experience.
On what? Jumper, right?
Jumper, yeah.
Yeah, which is a great movie.
Yeah, so. He's very passionate, and he's, super talented, and I love him. I adore him, and I had the best time with him. And
like I said, thank God he did the pilot.
When the show became very successful very quickly.
Hold on a second, Melinda.
Yeah.
When did that happen for you? This was my secret question for Melinda Clark, and this is my secret question for Rachel Bilson. When did you first go, okay, holy shit, this thing is working. Things are different now. I mean, Melinda, you were kind of a star already, so it might not have been, but I mean, obviously your star got shinier.
Yes.
But, you know, Rachel, you were very young. I mean, I don't know that you had done anything. I mean, the Pepto-Bismol commercial was awesome, but I don't know if you did it. And I'm just wondering, when was that moment for you two guys? Because I have mine. But I want to ask the two of you guys, when was the moment you were like, shit, man, this thing has some teeth and there's some people that like this thing?
Yeah, I mean, Melinda and I have talked about this. There was that event in Manhattan Beach.
I can't believe you just said that. That's mine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was so like mind blowing that many people were reacting to this thing we were doing. And that there were like a lot of fans of the show. I mean, it was really like an aha moment. Like
that was the aha moment for me too. It's so funny that both of you like say that's your moment too. I remember because I mean, like, you know, we're all doing everything we got to do to promote the show and kind of do the thing. And you're dealing with Peter Roth in the morning regarding the ratings, and everybody's stressed out because it's all about getting picked up for the back nine and is it going to work? And there's some, you know, garden variety thing down in Manhattan Beach, and you know we got to all show up, and they're trying to trick the cast into doing it too. And everybody, I mean, at least, yeah, it's just sort of like, come on, everybody, you know, toe the line. And everybody kind of showed up, and it was just a big frenzied crowd, chaos, buzzy, exciting,
Beatlemania
to get. What's that?
Like Beatlemania. It was that.
It sure as hell felt like that to me. I mean, I was so proud and happy for you guys. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm in a different position because no one was looking for me. They were all looking for you. And so I got to view that, and it was terribly, terribly satisfying and awesome. And I'm happy you guys got to experience that feeling. And it's funny. I mean, you two ladies might have an interesting point of view on this. What is the best part of fame and what is the worst part of fame?
Whoa.
Can I answer it's a rhetorical question
please.
That I heard someone say.
Yes.
The best part of fame is realizing it. So you're not on the outside and you never had a chance to see it. Because once you get it, as a great many famous people will tell you, it's very difficult in many ways. And I don't want to go down a poor me, woe is me actor thing, but you get my drift. But the ascension, getting it to scratch that itch of what it might be like, that has been shared with me as the best part of fame. And I never had to endure it like you guys had to endure it. So I would know. I know what side of the camera this face belongs on. So, you know, but what do you think, Melinda? What's the best part? What's the worst part?
Well, I actually heard something recently that resonated with me, and obviously, and it was from Matt Damon, who's clearly on a different level of fame. And Dax Shepard asked him about it. And he said, you know what? The relentlessness of it. And his perception was that the world stays the same. But when you have that kind of very high level fame, it changes your perception of the world, and your perception of everything changes. Now, I will go on to say that the core four, Ben, Misha, Adam, and Rachel, had a definite, totally different, not totally different, but a higher level than what I experienced. There's no complaining because there's some wonderful things, but very, very quickly after the OC, I started doing things like river rafting and camping and doing things that really grounded me, because there was a time when I was kind of obsessed with, I'm not in style, and comparing myself to things that wasn't a very healthy thought process for myself. So I'm at a point now where I really just appreciate my moment to moment, living in the moment. And I do know that there can be some very negative attitudes that can go on within the perception of the world once you have fame. So there's definitely a good balance. And also showing up for, you know, it can't become your entire life. You know, it can't be what I identify with. So what do you think, Rachel?
Yeah, no, it's just, you know, it's this weird thing, you know, and I don't know, at the time when it was all happening and Adam and I were together and kind of going through it together, I think it had a different kind of impact than it would have if I was just alone in it. So I attribute a lot of my level-headedness in having a partner to go through it with. But yeah, it was just a different time too, to kind of come upon this success in the early 2000s when the height of like paparazzi and before social media, and it was just like this different thing. But it's something to know, like grateful for it because you've had success, but also not putting too much into it as well. Like, I don't know that I have ever given it much thought other than it's awesome that I'm doing something that people are responding to.
I mean, like I said, Misha's been very vocal in the press about how it wasn't this, I'm standing next to her. She had a completely different experience than I did. And unfortunately, at the age of 17, it was handled or not handled. I would love to have her explore or tell us what it was like and I know that, for Ben and Adam, hopefully we get to hear their perspective on the show, because I think it's a really interesting thing where it's in coming off of the show. I think, you don't necessarily want to be categorized as the teen heartthrob when you're in your late 20s, if you want to have a career. So I know there was a lot of these young actors looking forward to what they can do after the OC, and that being that definition following you for the rest of your career. I embrace it, but I don't know. I can't speak for anybody else.
Well, I think you make a very excellent point. And I think the world has seen both sides of that equation in regard to, Ryan Gosling and Justin Timberlake were Mouseketeers.
Yeah.
They kept going, guys. They're doing okay. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they knock it. I don't think they duck it. I think they just like, hey, that's what I was doing then. This is what I'm doing now. And the world keeps turning.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Depp was on 21 Jump Street and,
right.
On and on. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, but you've also seen many stories where people didn't respond favorably to whatever that was. And is it exacerbated by what you're experiencing, or is that just your lot in life? Because some people do well and go on to have functional multidimensional lives, and some people struggle to a higher degree. And I think fame can be a great amplifier for that. And something else that I think your listeners should understand is you guys were famous at a time where there weren't as many famous people. Being famous meant something prior to social media. Social media has created a great many stars where you can have stars in the thing you care about. There are stars in online video gaming. There are stars in podcasting. There are stars in television. There are stars in the movies. There are stars in fashion. There are stars, the whole idea of influencers. It's different now. There are whatever you're into, there are the corresponding superstars. Back in the time of the OC, there was, People magazine, In Style, the sort of tabloidy, what have you. And that was limited to a certain amount of people. And you guys were those people. So there was an even greater magnifying glass on you guys at that time, because it wasn't spread out where like there's just countless famous people in any discipline, because now you can access anything on your computer.
I think that, it was such I don't know, like it's so weird for me being older and a mom and everything, and thinking back like what that was like then versus what it's like now. And just speaks to your point of, yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. But I hope you guys look back at it and smile.
Oh, yeah.
I know people can really get passionate, look, Ben and I have always stayed friendly. We've talked about several things. I know he wants to really focus on his craft and really focus on his acting, and he may not want to be so affiliated with the Ryan Atwood of it all. And that's his path to walk. There's no doubt about it. But to me, I hope he's very much at peace with it. And I would wish the same thing for Adam, who I haven't talked to in a while, of just like, it's just a chapter, man. Like it can be as important or as unimportant as you choose it to be. And by the way, if my thing as an outsider regarding the fame complaint, if you don't like being famous, walk away. Walk away.
Right.
It's very difficult to complain about fame, but still fan the flames that are required to be fanned in keeping you famous. That I think is unbecoming. If somebody genuinely doesn't want that kind of fame and they want to focus on the art, then go do theater in, Helsinki. Believe me, they'll stop showing up. Like you can change it. You're in more control than you think. And, I say that as a positive where you can find your lane and you can write your story. And I think that's powerful and a good thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. That first year, how exactly, what was your role in, if Josh and Stephanie were in charge of scripts and the day-to-day, what was your role for our listeners to understand? Like, were you script approval? Were you guest approval? What was your role? Were you part of the soundtrack? Oh, I remember you were, right?
Yeah, I mean, Josh and I have a joke that we've always been, secretly failed music executives that, found their way into television. That, that was our first love, and that's what we identify as, just, music heads. But I mean, really, it was, my job was that of everything you just said. Certainly the script, certainly talk about, but more just being the prime cheerleader and galvanizing the bosses to make sure that the path was clear for Josh and Stephanie, who did all the heavy lifting, and Bob DeLorenzo, like you guys remember the core people who really had to get in there and grind, you guys included, and do it with very difficult call times and very long days. And, just it's a really tough slog, and it's just as tough in the writer's room, if not tougher. I mean, it's hard to put a show on its feet. But I could synthesize the Fox people because I had a movie at Fox. I could synthesize the Warner's people because I had movies at Warner Brothers. So at that time, I was coming off the heat of the first Charlie's movie where, like Josh, he was in his 20s and he was a showrunner. I was in my 20s and, they gave me a big budget to make a big, movie with some of the biggest stars in the world. And I landed it, so that helped us just sort of block and tackle. And that just sort of colored the role of what's McG doing here? Well, he's just that guy to sort of go, this is going to be great. Trust me. Let's roll. I mean, if I were to ask you, what does Puffy do? Like, what does Diddy do? I don't know. What's the answer? A little bit of everything. He's the energizer. He makes it rain. He just makes it happen, man. Like, is he the producer? Yeah, maybe kind of. Is he the songwriter? Yeah, maybe kind of. Is he the performer? I don't know. I mean, a little bit, but he's in the middle of the hurricane and he's doing his thing to make sure all those stars shine. So I think that's basically my role because again, I was making movies and the heaviest lifting fell upon Josh's shoulders and Stephanie's shoulders, and to them the credit.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about like music was like your first love, so to speak, and producing that and stuff. But I remember you having the entire cast come and record a song. Do you remember this?
I remember this very well. And you know what? I got to tell you, my feelings are still hurt. And fuck Adam, because that son of a bitch told me that he could play the drums and he showed up and he was trash. And I'm like, dude, I had to call in one of my friends to come in and play the drums. But here's the other thing. All of you guys shoved it right up my ass because none of you guys liked the song I picked, which was a song called California by the Simple Tones on a very classic punk rock record called Beach Boulevard that was fucking perfect for what we were all about. But I blew it because I sprung the song on you guys too late. And Rachel, you were a good sport and you tried to sing in that son of a bitch. But then Gallagher got in there and got his chest out and started pulling the fucking Idolmaker and pushing everybody out of the way and started singing. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I got to get this thing back on the rails. And it never came. You know who killed it? Goddamn Josh Schwartz killed that thing. And he's like, this is bullshit. By the way, I have the raddest photos from that session you've ever seen in your life.
Oh my God, you have to show us. I
have the raddest little black and white Polaroids of like Adam banging out the drums and you on the mic and you and, Misha, like the fucking Ronettes with your headphones on in front of the big, great, microphone. And I loved it, but it was an epic fail. It was an epic fail. That shit never saw the light of day. I thought it was going to change the world.
I feel like, do we release it now? I mean, someone has to hear it. I want to hear it.
That shit landed like a Led Zeppelin on the doorstep of Josh Schwartz. And he goes, McG, this is going to kill everything.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
You know what though? Here's one thing where Josh was dead wrong, and testimony to Gail Berman. The first season's a big hit. You guys are all big stars. We go back because you got to tell the bosses, hey, what's season 2? We go back to tell the bosses what the pitch is going to be for season 2. Josh and Stephanie have it all worked out. And first thing Josh says to Gail Berman is, we got to change the theme song. I got this great. Gail Berman goes, made the face the two of you are making right now. She goes, Josh, stop. Over my dead body. No. 1,000 times no. You have an identity, you have a theme, you have, you know what I mean? And just went on and on. She was so right. And Josh was wrong to one. And Josh, who always gets it right musically. I mean, look what Alexandra Patsavas and Josh pulled off with the breaking of all these bands and everything. I mean, that was really, really innovative and super duper cool.
Well, do you remember what he wanted to change it to?
I don't. I'm so sorry. You got to call him and ask him.
Yeah, I'll ask him. That's crazy. I never knew that.
Yeah. First thing he goes in, let's change it. I got a new song. It'll, and Gail he didn't even get the words out, and Gail stomped on that one. And to her credit, she was passionate too about getting it right. And she was a big energizer of the whole thing and a huge fan of the two of you.
I remember actually singing on that song because I trained opera and did some musical theater, trying out some thing, and just being mortified that I actually did that on that song.
Did you?
I did. It was awful.
It was awesome. That whole, but I mean, we went to a studio called NRG in the Valley. It was owned by my buddy. We did, and Adam was bullshitting me and winding me up. Like, oh, I play the drums, man. I'll play the drums, man. I'm like, okay. He did.
He was in a band. He was the drummer in Big Japan with his friends.
Okay. I mean, maybe this was the early days of honing the craft, but, it's just, I look forward to talking to him about that one. It was a funny,
that's so funny,
youthful, good intentions with sideways result. And I got to dig out those master tapes and get them into your hands, but I won't sabotage Josh. I definitely got to get him to hear it so he doesn't feel undercut. But I mean, I got great pictures, and the master tapes are out there somewhere, and the song is so cool. It's like one of the few things that like Josh and I wildly disagreed upon.
Oh my gosh.
I remember Samira doing a Gwen Stefani kind of spin on her verse or line or whatever.
That makes sense. Yeah, I kind of remember that.
I remember that.
And then I went and did a movie with her that I produced. We did a horror movie down in New Orleans.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did this movie called Stay Alive down in New Orleans, and she was in it. She did a very good job.
Very good.
That's cool. Yeah. Little side note that in Adam's band, Jonah Hill was in Big Japan for a minute.
Listen, the Hill brothers may his older brother rest in peace.
Yeah.
A decidedly musical gang. I mean, and don't get me started on Beanie and the whole thing. I mean, they're just freaky talents.
Yeah.
They're just freaky talents. So I'm actually not surprised to hear that.
Yeah. Jonah was super awesome. Is super awesome.
That's my hype. Dude.
Oh my gosh. McG is showing Melinda. Is that your high school photo?
Yeah, and I've got this.
Holy crap.
Look at McG.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, McG looks straight out of an 80s band. You play the electric keyboard. That is awesome.
One note with the little dance and the flock of seagulls do in the back.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You bet. You know me well. You guys know me well.
I want to, now that's such a great segue, because I want to go back to your point about you being the cheerleader, because not only were you a cheerleader, you showed up to every press thing. You were doing your film career, but you showed up to every press thing. We showed up to when we got the keys to the city in Newport Beach and put our hands in the concrete, and you had viewing parties at your house and that cool house off Sunset. And we did those viewing parties, and I brought CG, and we'd all get together. And I just remember being so excited every time an episode came up. We did it, half a dozen times or something, and we would watch the show, and we loved it. And we were just all collectively just enjoying the success of the show those first few months that the show came on.
By a mile, my single most fond memory of the show is all of you gathering and coming over, and we would just simply watch the show when it came on. It wasn't in an age of, on-demand television. You had to wait until your favorite program was on at a certain time at a certain night. And it was just so great. We'd all kind of lie around, everybody grab a pillow. Some people were standing, some people were drinking and having fun. Some people were diving in and out of the pool. I mean, it was just a really, really fond, hey, that's what I came to Hollywood for kind of memory in all the right ways. And there was nothing mean-spirited about it. It was such a celebration. It was always an interesting bunch of people. And I mean, it was just what fond memories of everybody coming over and just piling onto that couch and waiting for the show. And then the theme would play and we'd watch it and we'd feel very proud.
I mean, and then, that's what happens when a show is that successful. And we also really love what we're doing. And I loved going to work every day, probably the most of any job I've ever done. And of course we
Well,
settle
that's really saying something. Plus, you had to go far. That stage is hard to get to.
I know. We talk about the traffic.
I had to drive. You know what, you guys? I had to drive there recently because Briar's dad, obviously, Star Wars is shooting down there, and I had to take her. And it was the first time I had been there since my last day of shooting, like 15 years, 8, whatever it was. And I was like, holy crap. First of all, it's so far, but also like the trees in front of where we shot, like are now very tall and large. I'm like, I don't even remember trees being here. It was very surreal, but driving there on a Friday was not fun. And it was very far when we did it, and it still is.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody obviously who listens to your show, guys, knows that like it's very common to have early call times. It's particularly punitive for the ladies because they often need more time in the chair and hair and makeup. And then you add the damn studio's 45 minutes away from your house, even at 4 a.m. And you guys got some long days on your hands.
Right.
Yep. Sure did. Melinda's favorite topic.
Oh, traffic. Yeah, that's all I talk about. I was doing a blog for the OC website at the time, and I look back, and the only thing I talked about was traffic on the 405. Oh, this day, I had to take the 101 to the 110 to the 110. Anyway.
So you're the genesis of the Saturday Night Live skit.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally. But
Okay,
actually, I think we covered that Brody is because he has a line actually just about freeways in one of the episodes, and we're like, "Oh, Brody invented the Californians."
Okay,
but that's the way we talked in Orange County. But when the show we had so much success very quickly. Did you ever predict that?
I certainly did not. I was very pleasantly surprised. The only time I'd ever worked on a TV show was the year before, I guess, on Fastlane. Mm-hmm. And Fastlane did okay, but not good enough to get a season 2. We got the back end of the first season, but it was a big, expensive show. And, I was sort of learning the ropes. And again, that was Peter Roth and that was Fox. It was the same outfit. And then along came the OC. And, it just, I knew that it was very special just because of Josh's voice. And then I was blown away by what you guys were doing, which was mutually beneficial in regard to his dialogue was so on point, but the manner in which you guys ingested it and redefined it and made it real was even more of an elevation. So I felt very clear that the show is excellent. Whether or not it was going to work, I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know. I was hopeful, but I didn't know.
How can you know? I mean, and then also I was curious about your thoughts of the cultural impact of, people knew about Orange County, but not worldwide. And then you have these spinoffs like Laguna Beach and Real Housewives. And also, do you feel responsible that the median house price is now more than LA? Because that's happened ever since this magnification of Orange County. It never used to be more expensive than LA.
Good point. Yeah. And, there are people that are happy about that and people that are unhappy about that. Right. But it speaks to the impact of the show you guys put together. It's really, really hard to do. I'm happy that we got to touch that back to, the sort of fame issue. Like, I'm thankful for that meteoric moment. And I just think that, I reflect upon it very fondly. I smile. So yeah, I wish everybody involved in the show the same thing. And I know I'm speaking on behalf of the fans that it's truly a fan favorite. I mean, lots of shows have fans, but the OC really had fanatics. I mean, it's just, you can be enthusiastic about a show or you can be crazy about a show. And it was nice to see people respond that intensely. It was very flattering and humbling. And I was just excited for all of you who are working so hard on it every day.
Yeah, all over the world. And Rachel, I don't think you know this. I found this out recently. So the restaurant that Sandy and Kirsten go to, The Arches, is a historic restaurant that McG and his partner bought and own, and it's called A Restaurant. And
only because we couldn't get the name The Arches.
Oh, okay.
And the A of The Arches was a very specific insignia. So I go, let's just call it A, but everybody's going to call it The Arches. Because they know, even though we can't legally get it. And then strangely, A stuck, and now people scarcely remember that it was called The Arches.
Really?
Yeah, it was and it's funny because the same reason why it showed up in the show is the same reason why we bought it, is because it was like this fondly regarded place where you would have 8th grade graduation if you had the big night to celebrate with your family. And it's actually an old filling station, sort of halfway between LA and San Diego, where Bogey and Bacall would get gas on the way to their Coronado Island hideout. And, so I got together with a bunch of like-minded people. And again, it's a reflection of that moment in time. I mean, one of my partners is Bob Hurley, the guy, like you see kids running around with the Hurley shirt. Bob Hurley. The other guy was Mike Ness, the singer of Social Distortion.
Wow.
Like a very eclectic, interesting group, because also like the OC would bring together different cultures. I always liked the culture of the British pub, where you could have, some terribly elegant woman who's, a member of parliament speaking to some like gutter punk rock dude, but they're having very literate conversations about the affairs of the day over a pint. And it was meant to be very inclusive and come one, come all. And I think you guys pulled that off with the show, and that's certainly the goal at the restaurant. We
have some questions from some fans, if you're up for it.
Up for it.
Okay. And this is one that I really was interested in. So from La Vida Laura, were there any actors that you wanted as a guest star? And I'm wondering this, was there a rumor that Justin Timberlake was going to be on the show ever? Do you remember?
I don't recall, but that sounds about right, but I don't recall. I think we were very lucky in seducing most of the people that we wanted to be on the show, being on the show.
Yeah.
I think Autumn was somebody that wasn't originally, kind of like the Summer Shape with what Rachel did, not originally meant to be such a major character. And Autumn Reeser's character became substantial. And, we were all big fans of the Tracy Flick character that Reese put together in Election. And there's a lot of, similar echoing in the voicing there. But I don't know. I'll find out about the Timberlake thing, and I'll find out.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
Right? It sounds vaguely familiar, but I don't think there was ever much meat on that bone, truth be told. I don't know that we ever got too far downstream on that one.
I think he was at one of your parties at your house.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. You had Gwen and Justin and Drew, and at one of your 80s parties or something.
That makes sense. I mean, that was a fun time where, I don't know. I would think about, just Rachel ducking in and out of some Brent Bolthouse club and that's right, Rachel, in Hollywood, and just kind of like, the camera's flashing when she's in action. And just, it's just, it was a fun time. So if Justin was being bandied about, I mean, listen, back to those meetings, that's the kind of thing the big wigs at Warner's and Fox would beat up on me about, like, you better get Timberlake to say yes, to, like, thinking that I'm like some magic Rolodex guy that's going to go out and just, get, Obama to show up on the show before his time. But you get my drift.
That's what I think about you. That you can talk to anybody and you can make any deal. Like you're the consigliere.
So I'm a bullshit artist, is basically it.
Yeah, it's the best kind of artist to be.
We may have covered this. XO Judy 89. What made the OC stand out compared to some of the other shows you've produced since?
I mean, I'm lucky enough to have been a part of Supernatural. Supernatural's the longest running science fiction television show in American history. And obviously has a psycho fan base. And if you see what goes on at Hall H down at Comic-Con for that one, like, it's nuts. And, amazing. But I just, it happened at a time in my life where I was very young. You talk about that house that we would all go to and kind of watch the show. I mean, I was new to being a homeowner, and yes, I'm a homeowner. And, it just, that sort of stuff was fun. And, I got to believe I'm speaking on behalf of both of you guys that was just a special moment in time that can't be replicated. And Melinda, I mean, we did Nikita together. So and it was awesome, but I just don't know if it had as much sparkle on it as the OC did. And, Rachel, I defer to you. I mean, that was an incredible moment in time where a lot of tumblers had to click for it to all come into focus and be what it was at that moment.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely, for me, anything I've ever done had the most impact, and still to this day, I think.
Which is exactly the next question from Samantha Rosen. Why do you think the show is still so relevant today? Because people are discovering it for the first time. They're watching it again. And I don't know if it's because of a lot of us rewatched or started watching things we'd never watched during pandemic, or because of our podcast, but people are enjoying it today.
I mean, I think it's really twofold. It's the writing. The writing holds up.
Mhm.
You know, do you not enjoy Friends today? I do.
Right.
As if it were the day it came out. The writing and then the performances and the lightning in a bottle, which is the cast. I mean, we just really got it right with the casting, and you guys took the ball and ran with it in ways that we could have never hoped for. You exceeded all of our wildest dreams. And I just think if you have, you know, the singular voice of Josh Schwartz, and, you know, Stephanie obviously was right there, and a great many others were right there, Alan Heinberg and a bunch of other really smart writers. And Adam was kicking ass and doing his own little thing. And he had his little dog and pony show that was doing, you know, and Ben was doing the brooding thing, and Gallagher was ready to be that guy. And then here comes Melinda Clark. And I'm like, is she hotter than, you know, Misha and Rachel? Am I supposed to feel that way? What's going on here? And
the answer is yes.
Like, no, but you get my drift. Like those were some sticky curveballs that made people dive in and stick around and watch.
Wow. Did you have a favorite episode? Do you remember?
The final episode of season 1. I cried like a baby. Oh God. Actually, I remember watching it with my casting directors on Superman. I was with my casting directors on Superman, and we watched it, and all three of us, they're two ladies, wonderful ladies, Kim and Justine. And we all cried like babies, and it was authentic. It wasn't even because we were associated with the show. It was just, we were that moved by that episode. That was one hell of a good television episode. So yes, that is clearly my favorite episode.
When Ryan is saying goodbye to Marissa. Yeah. At the Wayfarer's Chapel.
You know, that little dance and just the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's mine. What about you guys? You guys have a favorite? You've already gone over this in other podcasts?
It keeps changing.
Have we? Yeah, because I'm like, you know, we're watching it as we go, and I'm like seeing things, and it's all coming back to me, like things I wouldn't have remembered. And I think it's TBD for me.
But I do enjoy, yes. There's, you know what, honestly, I think of the whole thing as Julie's arc in one big episode, because when she's having an affair with Luke, and then she has to move to a trailer, and then her daughter dies, there was just so much meat. And I was so grateful.
That might be the single raddest thing I've ever heard in my life. When asked the most important component of the OC, Melinda Clark responded, I think of the whole thing as Julie's arc. That has got to be the greatest answer. What do you take from the OC? Well, I think of the whole thing as Julie's arc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
my experience. Instead of one singular episode.
Yeah, it was, you know what? I'm really happy that I was able to meet you guys through it and go through this whole thing together. And it's still so special to me today than it was then. And I'm super grateful. And McG, super grateful for you. And you being here with us is huge. And we thank you for taking your time and talking to us.
You guys are so cool. You make me miss you. You know, I will say, and I think the three of us have this thing. There's a great documentary on Stanley Kubrick, obviously one of the great filmmakers of all time. And Malcolm McDowell, who was the lead of Clockwork Orange, told this story about how when he was making Clockwork Orange with Stanley, he was the light of Stanley's eye. Mm-hmm. And you have so much intimacy and such intensity. And you guys know this as actors. And then you lose touch. I have not seen either one of you in a long time, but I'm as fond of you today as I've ever been. And it's such a glorious feeling, but there's a bittersweet symphony to it also, because I don't think the three of us ever said, hey, let's not stay in touch. You know what I mean? It's just life goes on, families happen, different jobs happen. We're all essentially migrant workers. Mm-hmm. We go to where the gig is in Europe, in Asia, in Australia, New Zealand, whatever. And it's hard to stay in touch with everybody. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of heartbreaking, but wonderful at moments like this when you can, you know, get the gang back together.
That's what's so gratifying about doing this. We're reconnecting. And I would never have been able to say, hey, McG, let's sit down and reminisce for an hour and a half about the OC. And so, hey, one little thing that I wanted to say hello to your sister, Betsy. And
I will.
You know, guys, she was the original.
That's back to the meta thing, though, Melinda. Like, there you go. Like Josh, Josh is always listening, and you never know when you're being sampled for a Josh idea. And like, I think your friends in the show were called the Betsies.
The Noopsies.
Oh, the Noopsies, which was a satirical thing on my sister.
Yeah.
Who's like on the periphery way over there. But, I mean, that's just Josh in a nutshell of like just that meta thing of art imitating reality, imitating art back into the valley, back into the beach, back into Real Housewives. It's just very difficult to tell where reality ends and fiction begins. And that's the masterstroke.
So her group was the Betsies?
No, I think it was the Noopsies.
Yeah, it was. Okay, that's what I remembered. That
but it was based on Betsy's homies.
Right.
It was like her group, and that was the way it made sense to Josh. And he would just pull from, Volchuk on the show. The bad guy was the agent at, our manager or something.
Brody's agent. Yep.
Yeah.
Kevin.
I mean, so
but your last name is Nichol. Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
Caleb Nichol.
Hello.
I was like, wait, that yes. So
there's that too.
There's all that. There's all that.
I can't thank you guys enough. I hope you have a video component to this because you guys both look absolutely ravishing.
Thank you.
Good for you. And very, very delighted to see you.
You look great as well. And
I'm bringing skinny fat back in 2021. It's going to be chic if it's the last thing I do.
Well, congratulations on your family and your little girls. And there's nothing more rewarding. And what an absolute pleasure it has been to reconnect with you. And let's all work together in the future.
Yes.
You're the one
I look forward to it.
Yeah.
All right, ladies. Thank you. And congratulations. This is a great idea.
Thanks.
And to all the fans out there, I'm glad you guys are supporting Melinda and Rachel and hearing all the stories that are fun to hear.
Thank you so much for listening. Follow, rate, and review. Welcome to the OC Bitches, wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you like to watch us, check it out on YouTube. Thanks.
Thank you. See you next week. Bye. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to start with the pilot episode and catch all of our episode recaps.